Now, experts on children's rights have welcomed the judgment on the protection of the identity of underage victims, witnesses and perpetrators of crime. And this week, the Constitutional Court ruled that the identity of minors should be concealed even after they reach the age of 18. And the decision emanated from the case of Zephany Nurse, who discovered when she was a teenager that she had been kidnapped as a baby and did not want the media to name her. The Centre of Child Law brought this case forward on behalf of Zephany Nurse, and we joined now by attorney from the centre, Litha Stwayi. Thanks so much for speaking to us this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Litha, this goes back to the ruling by the Supreme Court of Appeal, if we take it further back in Bloemfontein last year, that perhaps we should take this to the Zephany Nurse case and how this came about.
Yes, so it actually started in 2015 in the High Court in Pretoria, where we had to actually get an interdict to stop the media from actually revealing her identity when she turned 18.
So obviously, the media brought an application. They obviously had an argument in this regard. But for the benefit of our viewers right now, can we just look at the arguments that were put forward by the media and why this case was brought to court?
So actually, the centre in the interdict actually started this case because one of the things that happened is that Section 1543 of the Criminal Procedure Act protects child witnesses and child offenders from being identified when reporting stories. So when the Zephany case broke out, they were reporting and anonymizing her, but then they stated that they would actually reveal her identity when she turns 18. So we then brought the urgent interdict, but then more applicants joined our case. For example, NICRO, which is a organization that helps child offenders, and Childline, which is an organization that helps child victims, because it was bigger than our actual clients, because there are more kids who actually are affected by this. So one of our arguments was that we had psychologists, we had the experts from the different organizations stating that it's actually not in the child's best interest to be revealed. And one of the things that was the big one for child offenders especially is rehabilitation and restorative justice. Children had they had lesser chance of reoffending when they actually went through the program, they did the time for the crime that they committed, and then they went on to lead actual normal lives. And there was less reoffending that would occur. But also the psychological impact for the victim, because the victim would know that at some point when they turn 18, they would be revealed. And one of the things is that they never wanted to be known as a victim. They actually wanted to work through and get through this traumatic ordeal that they've gone through.
And of course, one can understand how the public would perhaps be more sympathetic towards victims and witnesses, but not in the instance where the minor is actually the offender. Yes.
No, understandable. But in the way that our child justice is kind of made is that children have more of a chance of actually getting rehabilitated. Even the causes of why they committed certain crimes could be that there are multiple factors that could be the reason for that. So with restorative justice and the actual way that our child justice is structured is that the children they show remorse, they actually go through the program that they're actually being taught, either whether it's in a child and youth care center or whether it's in a juvenile detention, and the reoffending rate is actually lessened. And I think that's what we want to achieve. We don't want children then reoffending as adults. If now that same child offender does an offense as an adult, then there's no protection. So it's specifically to protect children when they're either offenders, witnesses or victims, and then the extension goes into their adulthood. But it doesn't say that you can't report on the story. You can. And also, if you feel that you want to actually reveal the identity, then a competent court can make that decision. It shouldn't be left up to the actual media or the journalist.
And perhaps just finally, what kind of impact have you found the identification of children's identities have on their lives once they are later named? What are some of the long-lasting negative consequences of this?
So part of it is the stigma that comes with it from the environment that they may find themselves in, and also just the shame. So those type of feelings and those types of that experience actually then aids in reoffending because, for example, with child offenders, if you're known in your community as that child then that did that crime, it's easier for you to actually go back to reoffending because even the community that you're living with still kind of sees you with that stigma.
And we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Litha Stwayi, who is from the Center of Child Law, for talking to us about the judgment on the protection of underage victims of crime and their identities not being revealed even after they turn 18. So that's that story. Let's take a break and then